Happy Tuesday. You just let me do it every time now, I think. It's Tuesday. Even if it's not Tuesday, if you're watching YouTube and you see Josh's face, he's not pleased. But it's Tuesday where we are. It might be Tuesday where you are. And if not, I'm just gonna guess, happy Friday. If I got it right, that'd be cool.
Sure. I'm just gonna let Deb swim out of here by herself. She wants to keep doing this. Just awkward silence. Just continue on, Deb.
It's Tuesday. We record on Tuesdays, most of the time.
That's true. Yeah. Yep. And I feel like based on what you were saying earlier, talking about how warm it is outside, was it really a happy Tuesday?
No, it's hot. And I like the heat, but
it's all a facade, people. She doesn't mean it when she says that. That's what I'm trying to get to here.
Well, and like it rained a little bit. When was it? Saturday morning?
Yes.
I'm like, why is the ground wet? when I'm like running, Nala and I are going for a run. I'm like, why did it rain? And so anyway, it got a little cooler this past weekend, so that was nice. But we're back to summer weather today. And then unfortunately next week too. I looked at the weather ahead.
Same thing, just warm.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 100 sometime next week, which is, September next week. So I'm a little disappointed. I really want fall to be here. I'm just, I just want basic fall things.
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
The pumpkin spice stuff and all that.
I just want to wear a sweater. I just want to wear a sweatshirt. I like people, this is probably a debate, but I love wearing shorts and a sweatshirt. That's just my kind of weather. I love it.
It's kind of like Central Coast, like beach weather, right?
Yeah. Beach weather.
Yeah.
That's my deal. I could save it for our topic today, I guess. But anyway, I have a vision of living next to the ocean someday. Anyway.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Has that always been the case, or was that partially due to your recent trip to Hawaii?
Maybe a little bit contributed to that, but no, I want to say for the past 5 or 6 years, I literally have written in my journal, like, I'm going to live by the ocean someday.
Can I use my imagination a little bit and kind of paint a picture of what I envision that life would be like for you?
Segue. Yes.
Buckle up, because this might be offensive. So I feel like my vision of you would be living, because you've always said you're kind of a gypsy at heart, right? And the way you do things, the way your mind works as far as what you do, when you do it, it's a gypsy lifestyle. So when you say that you would love to live by the beach, I can imagine like living like in like a little hut or a shack by the beach somewhere. And a lot of shells, the hair is, it's messy. There might be some sand toys or sand shells in your hair that you didn't realize, and it wasn't decoration. It's like, oh, how'd that get there? And I also feel like as people pass you, it almost becomes like a legend in whatever beach you're living at. It's like, oh yeah, that's Deb. She's the local crazy lady. Like we say hi to her. She kind of talks to herself when we pass by. We don't know what she's talking about, but she just loves life. She seems like she's happy all the time, but we have no idea who she is, what she does. And, so we keep our distance. We give a friendly wave, but we don't get too close to Deb over there in the shack, because we don't really know. And obviously she thinks she's a mermaid. And so she's making like weird, dolphin noises out in the ocean. She thinks that she can communicate with ocean animals. She pets turtles, the whole thing. Like I could see that being your life.
That is the dream.
There we go. You're welcome. I just painted a beautiful picture for you.
I can only hope that that's my life someday.
Sure.
Everyone leaves me alone if they see that I look like a crazy person.
That's true. And the nice thing is, to everybody else, you look crazy. In your own mind, in your own world, you're having the best time.
That's all that matters.
There you go. So are our visions at all close?
I mean, well, not so. Yours is a little better, probably. Mine's not.
Oh, I hope not. You gotta aim higher.
But definitely by the ocean. I would love that.
I do love the ocean. It's well documented on this podcast. I am an ocean person for sure. Yeah. And there's just something very calming about the ocean. You know what I mean? It's a good place to be.
I listen to ocean wave noises on my phone, like the white noise, background noise. every night. I fall asleep to it. I just leave it on all night on my phone. It's great.
It's the best. We have some noise machines for our kids, and I think it's set to the ocean noise for both of them. There's like 5 other options, and some of those options are terrible. Like, what psychopath is going to be falling asleep to this? Like breaking glass? Not really. That's what it sounds like to me. It's like, psh, 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 psh. Like, oh, that's weird. If there's a baby out there or a kid who falls asleep to that, I don't want to meet him because I feel like that kid's not going to be super stable. It's like
Have you
I
heard?
feel like the only option is either white noise or the ocean sound, but anything else is insane.
What about the heartbeat one?
Oh yeah, that's creepy. That's one of the worst ones. Dun,
Not
dun,
for a baby,
dun.
for us, but not for a baby, I
You
guess.
know, honestly, I think even when those babies is like, "Hey, I'm out here now.
I
That
don't
was
need
cool when I was inside the womb. I'm good. Let me hear some other noises."
so creepy.
It's the worst, and you don't think about this, but a lot of times those noise machines are loud enough for the people around the house to hear as well. So like you're passing by the room and you hear dun 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 dun. It's like you have a Halloween decoration inside that kid's room. I
Yeah.
don't like it. So no, pass on that one. I first heard that, I'm like, oh, that's terrifying. Not doing that.
Pass.
Pass.
I'll take the ocean waves.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm
Even
with you.
raindrops, something just soothing, like a natural sound.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, the rain's not bad. Do you like to listen to the rain?
Yeah, the rain's okay. I like to listen to the actual rain. That doesn't bother
Right.
me. For some reason, sometimes when I'm playing my ocean, waves, I don't know what happens, but sometimes it shuffles to whatever it wants, like similarly, and then it goes to raindrops, and then I'll wake up and I'll change it. I'll be like, I don't want that. For
Huh.
some reason, it'll go to raindrops, and I just don't like the way they sound
What's your
on
ghost?
Spotify. What?
It's your ghost.
Oh yeah, well yeah, for sure. Just
That
playing again.
they're the one that changes it. They're tired. They're living there too. They're tired. Like no more ocean.
They want the rain.
Yeah.
They put the rain on.
Have you had? Does that mean other than that? Have you had any appearances from your friend?
Mm, no, but now that I have a dog and sometimes she's just staring at things, I'm like, oh, okay. I'll,
Yeah.
nothing crazy alarming. Again, my ghost is not a bad ghost. It's a very calm, sometimes plays pranks on me ghost. It's very welcoming. But but Nala will sometimes just look up at the ceiling, and I'm like, and there's no noise, no footsteps, no neighbor, and I'm like, okay, well, uh, is my ghost floating right now? Like, what are you looking at? Just
That's
so
tough.
I heard that though. That's a thing apparently with dogs and children with ghosts. So I just kind of every once in a while she'll stare at something. It's probably nothing, but it could be my ghost. It could be.
Well, there you go.
Who knows?
Yeah,
But yeah,
that's fun. That's
nothing
fun. That's
mean.
fun that you live with a ghost and a dog.
Yeah.
It's a fun trio there.
Yeah. And then the three of us will go live by the beach someday.
Oh, you're gonna take the ghost with you?
I mean, it just follows me. It's going to hitch a ride, I'm
That's
sure.
true. It did go from apartment to apartment, didn't it?
They like themselves.
There you go. Well, anyways, we could talk about your ghost, but we'll probably talk more about that in a few weeks when Halloween rolls around. So
Yeah.
we can move on from that.
Mhm.
Today, we decided we were going to talk a little bit about imagination, and it hit me. I think it hit me because obviously with me having kids, imagination, seeing their imagination play out is a massive part of our lives, right? Like every single day is a new world they're building, this new thing they're creating, the new game they're playing, and it's all this stuff that's concocted in their mind, and they just have the best time. And I was thinking about that the other day, how it's this weird thing, right? Because when we're younger, very much like my kids, like you have this ability in your head, in your mind, to dream up these crazy things. You create these crazy games, you create these amazing worlds that are all inside your head. You have your action figures, your stuffed animals, your dolls, your toys, and you're building these massive worlds that they
Right.
basically live in. And like the possibilities are endless. Like nothing is off the table. You can kind of do and think and create whatever you want. And then at some point in our lives, as we grow up, like that kind of it almost feels like it goes away. And then all of a sudden, the reality of life, the reality of our situation, the reality of whatever we're dealing with at that time kind of takes over. And it's almost like, yeah, I don't want to make this sound more dramatic, but it's almost like the reality kind of erases that entire imagination thing. And we become almost like a prisoner to the reality of our situation. Obviously, there's things in life that you have to be realistic about, but it almost like completely wipes away or pushes out this idea of imagination, which is a bummer, right? Because I'm not saying that, you know, some people probably live in a dream world or it's all imagination, even as adults. It's like, well, maybe a little dose of reality would help you. But there's some people, it's like, it's only reality. And there's almost no room for imagination or dreaming or anything like that. And I think there's a balance between those two things. And sometimes when you think about it, especially like I said, when I watch my kids play and you realize that so many of us have lost that ability to use our imaginations and use our imaginations to think and dream about a bigger, better version of our life. It's kind of a sad thing. I think it's possible to get that back and kind of reignite that, and maybe we can talk about that today. But I do think it's a bummer sometimes when you think about that. When you watch kids play, there's just this freedom they live with, and they're not hindered by any of the craziness of life. They are just out there having the best time and dreaming the biggest dreams and thinking of the coolest ideas. And then at some point, we just get hit with a ton of bricks, and it's like, okay, imagination's got no place. And so, I just thought it'd be a fun thing to talk about and, you know, kind of dive into today. And as you and I text before, you were, and I feel like you've mentioned this on this podcast before. You were saying, "Great, I don't have an imagination," so we'll talk about this.
Well, like you said, like when the older you get, right, it kind of gets stifled a little bit, you know, with your responsibilities and just how
Sure.
busy you are. But just now, I had a few memories unlock in my head, right? You know, as you were talking about, you know, kids
Perfect.
being, you know, kids dreaming up whatever, and just, you know, when you're little, you know, like my sister and I and all of our friends, we would like put on all these shows for our family and like write all these plays and sing these songs and do all these things. Like we had all these ideas, right? And that's, as kids do, they're you know, they're absorbing everything and the world is their oyster, and it's, you know, a great feeling. It's like, cool, I want to be a kid again just for a little bit, you know. um I'm thinking in my head, I have a few memories more probably will pop up, but so my sister is and has always been realistic.
Okay.
She has our whole life, even when we're like 5, she's always been just realistic to the point of being a dream crusher. So I remember being she's my reality check.
All right.
My
Wasn't
sister,
expecting that.
even as little girls. So I remember, and again, this sound obviously this is like silly, but probably cute. Like if you know, look, watching I don't know how old I was, maybe 7. I don't know. I'm just guessing, ballpark, right?
Sure.
7, 6. I don't know. I do remember. I have a vivid memory of me just being like, I want to build an airplane. Right? You smile because it's funny, right? It's
Sure.
cute. If I saw a 6 or 7 year old come up to me and say, I want to build an airplane, I
Sure.
would too. I'd be like, yeah, go for it. And I remember my sister just like your face right there. And she's 3 years older than me. So if I'm 6, you know, she's 9, or if I'm 7, she's 10 or whatever. And I just remember her cracking up and saying, you will never build an airplane. And yeah, I'm telling you, something like that. I don't know if she said those exact words, but she basically told me, "You're ridiculous. You can't build an airplane."
Oh
So what
man.
did I do? And I went to my dad's wood pile. I started grabbing pieces of wood, started stacking them. I started figuring out, how can I build an airplane? She said, I can't do it. I'm going to do it. I remember like stacking pieces of wood and trying to build a seat. I'm not even joking. And of course, this is, you know, hilarious. Obviously, that's true. I could never build a plane. But I remember her saying that, and like immediately, like just my dreams being crushed. And
Sure.
just, you know, and I'm the type of person is like, tell me I can't and I will, like, watch me. so, right. Even as, you know, obviously, even as a 7-year-old. So anyway, it was silly. Obviously, I gave up after probably 10 minutes. I don't know. And, you know, walked away from it feeling completely defeated.
Sure.
And then I remember when I was probably like license age, like 16, 15, 16, I remember telling my sister, like, oh, the car I want, like, I want a Jaguar. I don't know why. I think I saw one driving around. I think I thought it looked cool. I can't tell you what, I don't know, a Jaguar.
Well,
And I
first of all,
remember,
that's for sure an Aunt Deb car,
right, right,
100%.
right. And I could make that happen, but unfortunately, I like other cars now. But back then,
Oh,
apparently,
what a flex! Like I could do it, but I don't feel like it now.
I drove years ago just for funsies. I went to like a car show in San Francisco and I test drove like an electric Jaguar. It was the coolest thing. So anyway, obviously I'm not in that direction or want to be, but
Sure.
I remember being little and saying I want a Jaguar, and my sister, again, the dream crusher, just starts cracking up, just like bursting up, like laughing. And she's like, you'll never have a Jaguar. My sister, I don't even mean, she's not a bitch. My sister's actually very sweet. She's sweeter than I am, but she's a realist. So she would
Sure.
be like, Deborah, that's very unrealistic.
Yeah.
Like,
Does your sister listen
does she listen?
to this podcast?
I don't know. Maybe from time to time. But she knows this story. I'll tell her. Maybe she'll remember. Maybe she won't.
No, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about her critique of the podcast. She's like, this podcast. Now I'm worried. She's out there listening. Like this thing has sucked for 3 years.
but I mean, her realism, I mean, it is helpful, obviously,
Sure.
for some, like, be like, there's a balance, right?
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
but anyway, I just remember that feeling of like being shut down so fast and being like, why can't I imagine that I'm going to build an airplane? Why can't I imagine that I can have a Jaguar one day? Like, why not? Why can't I? So anyway, so I remember again in my head being like, I'll show her, I'm going to buy a Jaguar one day. I'll get one. I will buy one. Of course, that's
Yeah.
Obviously has not happened. Neither has the airplane thing, but
Sure.
it would be nice to know that I could do something if I wanted to. So anyway, no, I love
That's
my
funny.
sister. She's great. She's not a dream crusher, but it felt like it when we were little.
Sure.
So crushing down all my crazy ideas. Can't think of any more specific ones, but those are the two like unlocked memories that I just had just now.
That's funny.
But it's funny. It's trying to have a balance between like like a dream and reality and taking care of business at the same time. So it's an interesting balance, but I do feel like the older we get, the more things we are tied down to. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just, responsibilities, paying bills, paying the mortgage, you have kids, you have, you have things. And I think sometimes our imagination just kind of like, again, the 10-year-old Alicia, which is my sister's name, sets in, and it's like, you can't do that. She comes in and squashes the dreams. I'm just kidding. No, it's, so it's hard to keep, dreaming things up and imagining the older you get. So that's why I texted back up. Like, I have no imagination anymore. I don't. I don't feel
Well,
like
I can understand why now. It all makes more sense.
right. There's my trauma unlocked.
It was just beaten out of you at an early age. I get it. No, and that's the thing too. Obviously, going too hard one way or the other, it would obviously be problematic, right? And so if you are just all imagination, all creativity, it's just completely unbridled, and you just have all these crazy thoughts and dreams, and this, you live in this world where anything is possible and you can create whatever you want.
Yeah.
Not going to be super effective, because at a certain point, like we said, the reality of certain things come into play, right? Like you may have a big dream, but how do you fund it? How do you accomplish it? How do you make the connections that are necessary to even make that thing happen? And so there's a piece of that, like where if you want those dreams and those things that you're imagining to come true, there is a dose of reality that comes with that, like the practical logistical steps on how you make those things possible, right? And on the flip side, I personally think, like, I know there's some people out there that are just realistic, just logistical. All they think about is it's very black and white, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine. I think you can live that way, but I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not that way. And the idea of living a life like that, and no disrespect to anybody who's that way, but if you have no room for any kind of creativity or any kind of joy or dreaming, like it seems like a rough life to me. It's like you can go through life that way, but do you really want to? Like, that's kind of how I see it. Like, and I'm not saying you have to have these massive dreams where you're thinking like a kid all the time, but I think there's got to be some room there. And it can be a simple thing. Like, you might have a dream one day of going to, say you've never been to Hawaii, right? You have a dream to go to Hawaii one day. That's not unrealistic. Something that can actually be obtained. It's not like you're saying I plan on owning Hawaii one day. That would be crazy. But even if you have room for that, I think that's a beneficial thing for our lives. Like, I think having those little things that you kind of dream about and imagine and think about one day, is beneficial. I think it's a healthy thing for sure. But maybe not though. Maybe some people are like, I don't have, based on experience, based on past things that have happened, I can't allow myself to do that. And it's got to be all black and white, and it's got to be all, kind of like the nuts and bolts. That's it. You know what I mean? Like nothing else beyond that. But for me though, I feel like, I think there's a balance between the two things. And I think if you can find that balance, I think it's a good thing for sure. And yeah, it is crazy when you like, and I guess I couldn't look back and think when like the imagination for me starts to kind of dwindle a little bit. Because like I said, when I was younger, like I had Ninja Turtle action figures, your Batman action figures, you're creating these whole worlds, and you're playing these games and these situations. They're saving the city, which is actually your living room, and all these different things, right? And then at some point, like it's almost like trying to do that or trying to recreate that same feeling or that same imagination. It almost takes work, right? Like you almost have to think, okay, like how did I play like this? Like how did I pretend these guys were doing this? Like it's a very strange thing. And I don't know, I'm sure they've done studies on it, but I couldn't even pinpoint when that kind of shifted for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's definitely, I think the shift for me, I don't know, probably early adulthood when I realized how much things cost and what it takes to live, and like I'm living on my own and right. So yeah, it's hard. And I guess I shouldn't say I have no imagination. I do. I just think I can't. And for me, sometimes imagination means like doing a career change or doing something drastic or crazy, which it doesn't have to be that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just simply thinking of an idea, even writing it down and trying to like plan for it and write it. It's funny, when people say like speak it into existence. It's like, okay, obviously I can't just say it and it happens. All right. Like
Sure.
you got to do things. But like I said earlier at the beginning of this episode, like I want to live by the beach someday. Like even if I have to wait until I retire, like I want to live by the beach. And so I did write that down in a journal years ago and just kept saying like I want to live by the ocean. Like I wrote down a specific place, which I don't really need a specific place at this point. I just want to
Sure.
live near the water. And so but I am starting to, like, for example, I'm starting to take that a little more seriously because I'm like, why not? Why can't I live by the beach one day? And again, I'll even wait till I retire. Like it doesn't have to be now or within the next 5 or 10 years. It can be, whenever, because I'm not planning on upping and leaving. I love my community. I love the friends here. Like, but everyone has their own families. Everyone has their own things going on. And one day, like, I just might want to up and leave. So who knows? But I am starting to make steps towards, putting my money in places like investing or opening another retirement account so that I am ready for that, when I retire, like that I could go have the money and do that. So I am at the point where I am making plans to maybe someday doing that. And I don't think it's a crazy thing. I think it's just, you just got to, you can have an imagination and have a dream and write things down, but you have to, for me, I have to have a plan in place. If I'm like, okay, do I really want to do this? Okay, what do I need to do? And I have to be patient for it. And that's the other thing. I think people imagine things and dream of things, but then get frustrated when they're like, okay, I want it now though, because you get so excited about something, right? But then you have to realize that some things take time, and you're like, well, I want what that person has. Why can't I have what they have? But then you also have to realize that that person that may have been decades in the making for that person. So, we look at someone's, I think we've said this before on certain episodes when we're talking about these topics, but you have to look at someone's entire book and all the chapters and not just the ending, the end result. It's like they had to go through XYZ probably, and it took maybe years, maybe 10, 20, maybe 30 years, like it took time. So I think that's it too. People have an imagination because they see someone else doing it, or they get, an idea or something creative. But as adults, we're so busy, and sometimes we're impatient, and we're old, the older we get, we're like, I don't want to wait that long. Like, I'm getting older. Like, I just want to do that thing now. And then when they realize like, oh, it's not going to be tomorrow, then sometimes I think that kind of shuts it down for them.
Yeah.
So then I think that's sometimes where imagination gets stifled in adulthood. I don't know.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I think that's very true for a lot of people, and that's why we're gonna probably keep saying it multiple times throughout this episode. But there is a balance between the two things, and me personally, I feel like those two things, the practicality of your situation and the dream imagination side, they have to work hand in hand. I think if you want to accomplish like amazing things, like if you're trying to do something great, if you're trying to pursue a dream or reach this goal that's been, on your heart and on your mind forever, I think those two things have to go hand in hand if you really want to make a run at it and try to accomplish something. And one of my favorite quotes, it's something I've used forever on different podcasts that we've done, and different posts that I've put out there, especially in the sports world. It was from a book called Mind Gym, and it said, "Limits begin where vision ends." And that's always stuck with me because it's 100% true, and it's such a simple way of looking at that. Like, once you lose vision, once you're unwilling to look beyond where you're at, once you're unwilling or unable to look further down the road in the future, your limits are right there. So if you're saying, hey, I can't do X, Y, or Z, if you're saying I can't lose weight, I can't get this degree, I can't achieve this career, if you're already telling yourself that you can't do it, and you're not allowing yourself to imagine a world in which you achieve those things, then you're putting your limits right there. You're not even giving yourself an opportunity or a chance to try to compete or achieve those things. You're just saying, well, I can't do it. So your mind is already saying, well, I guess I can't reach that. So what's the next thing I can do that's maybe more realistic? I
Mm-hmm.
just don't believe in that. Like, I feel like if you want to achieve something really big and audacious, I think you have to have this thing in your mind, especially the starting point where you say, hey, this is where I'm trying to go. It's a long ways from where I'm at right now, but this is what I want to do. How do I get there? And then that's where the practicality, that's where the logistics comes in, right? That's where the reality comes in. It's okay. This is the dream. I can see it in the distance. How do I get there? And then the reality needs to take over and say, okay, X, Y, and Z needs to happen for me to move in that direction. But at the same time, you always have to have the vision ahead of you. Like, if you lose sight of that vision that you're pursuing and you're just so focused on the X, Y, and Z, well, then you forget why you're doing it. And so there's this back and forth tug of war balance beam thing that goes on between the two things. And I think if you shift one way or the other too far, I don't think you'll get there, because it's
Yeah.
like, well, why am I putting all this work in? Like, what am I trying to achieve? Like, I want to, like you said, retire and live on the beach, but all you're doing is working, 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 working. It's like, wait, what am I working for again? Oh, that's right. Yeah, I had a dream at one point, but I don't even know if I really want to do that anymore. Right. And if you don't have any kind of vision for where you're going, it's going to be tough to put that work in. I think it's also a motivator too. So when you're putting in the practical everyday work to get there, having that dream in your head, to me at least, is huge. You know what I mean? Like, take your life, for example. When you were, you've joked and talked about how you have this kind of like not a schedule, but like this back and forth. Like, every other year you do like a big travel year, and then you take off because you have to kind of refill the savings account in order to do that, right? It's the same type of thing. Like, that's in your mind, and you have a goal of, okay, you want to travel. I don't know if you have plans in traveling this upcoming year and doing a big trip, but all the work you're doing, from the massage business to being a teacher and all these different things, saving, making choices. Oh, I can't go out tonight because I got to save money. All those things are practical steps you're taking for the bigger dream, right? And so I
Yeah.
think, like, again, those two things have to go hand in hand. And I think if they don't, I think it's gonna be a frustrating thing for someone. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
It
my
takes
long-winded thought, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a way you can achieve something really big, because even if you have like something you're like just very practical about something, and it's like, oh, I'm trying to get here,
yeah.
like, it just seems hard. It would be hard for me to not have like something that I'm striving for and that I can envision. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm working, and then hopefully I can do something fun at the end of it. But I don't know if it works out.
Right.
It works out. But like, what are you trying to pursue? And again, like you mentioned this, I don't think it has to be anything big and crazy. But I
Right.
think having some kind of dream in your head to focus on is helpful.
Yeah. Well, and it's so, if I can give anyone any type of advice, because I wish someone would have asked me this a long time ago. Um, I think if I can recall, years ago, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, I was with my family and I mentioned something. I was saying, I was talking about work and talking about like, if I'm going to be, because I was teaching already, right? I mentioned something in front of my parents, saying like, well, if I'm going to be teaching, for the rest of my life, I don't know what I don't know what I said after that, but I remember my my amazing stepmom Jenny basically saying,
Shout out to Jenny.
yeah, she basically said like, why, or like, you don't have to teach for the rest of your life. Who said you have to teach for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I was like blown away. I don't know why. I was like, I don't. She's like, no, you could do whatever you want to do. And
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know why I needed permission. I think it's because I'm like, well, I worked hard for my degree and my credential. Like, this is what I'm doing. I've made my decision. This is it. Um, and I think I said something like, oh yeah, I guess I could do something else if I wanted. She's like, yeah, why not? And so I think an important question to ask yourself is like, if you have an idea and if you shut yourself down immediately, which I tend to do sometimes, some people are critical of themselves, or some people are like, try to be too realistic. And I think before shutting yourself down, or shutting anyone else down for that matter, ask why not. Like if you have an idea and you're like, but I can't do that, just ask immediately why not.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you have to think of reasons why not. And all of a sudden you can't think of reasons why not. So you're like, huh. Like I do have some of my friends actually do that for me. They're like, why not? Why can't you do that? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I just feel like I can't. And then it's kind of helpful because then I have amazing friends. They'll help me brainstorm things. Well, what about this? Then you can do your thing. It was that, massage school was another, tough thing to make a decision on, right? Like, oh, like that's going to be a lot of work. I don't know if I can do that. Well, why not? Like, why can't you do that? You've done hard work before. Like it's fine. You could do this. And my sister, by the way, is not a dream crusher now. She was when I was 6, but she's not now.
That
She
really,
was,
are you,
I had to play
you've
her
never
cry.
asked me to take anything out of a podcast, but I feel like we're heading that direction. We're at the end of this is like, hey, the Dream Crusher part, take that out.
No, it's important because I think dreams are crushed when we're little, right? When we're hit with that, like, you can't do that, So I think
Sure.
it's important to let our littles know that you can do whatever you want. But obviously, you got to, teach them realistic ways. I'm not a parent. I don't know. Don't take my advice. But
Sure.
I am not an expert on anything, especially parenting. But my sister was very, obviously very supportive. Like, oh my God, that's amazing. I think you'd be great at that.
Yeah.
Support everywhere, all the way around. But anyway, another thing I wanted to add to that, speaking of like my massage business, is my main goal originally for that was like, and that was the year I decided to go to massage school. That was a bad teaching year, meaning like it was right after COVID. I was just like, I need to, what else can I'll work at Starbucks. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm out. Like, I can't, like, this environment is not good. It's gotten better. I'm a lot happier today teaching than I was back then. But my
You
original
seem
plan,
like it.
yeah, it's gotten a
Yeah.
lot better. And I love the people I work with too. That helps a lot too. But my original plan was to be a massage therapist, like full time. Like, I'm not teaching anymore. I think that'd be great if I could just run my own business. And that's what I do now. So keeping that in mind, sometimes you will have an original idea like that. But obviously I knew work had to go into it and I knew time was going to have to pass. So I was like, committed to like, okay, I'm going to put my time in and just put my time in. Well, now 2 years later, right? Maybe 3 years later, 2 years later from actually going to school, I'm actually happy with the balance right now, the teaching full time and having a business on the side that I can control and take clients whenever I want, rather than having a full-time massage business, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay for dreams to evolve, but I didn't just give up. I didn't just stop. Like,
Yeah.
I let it evolve and I let it become what it is now. And I'm actually happier with it now, I think, than I would be if I were to have quit teaching and just do the business full time. Right. So
Sure.
it's like, I think a lot of people do that too. They just, quit and give up because they're like, well, it's not going how I thought it would go or the way I wanted it to go. And I'm a big believer in sometimes, and most of the time, your plans don't work out the way you planned them anyway.
Sure.
And I think sometimes as adults, we can like stop putting in the work to, from the original idea or imagination because it's not going the way we want it to go. But then you don't know what it's going to evolve into. And sometimes it can evolve into something better
Yeah.
than you had hoped for.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's great. I think that's a good perspective on all of that. And yeah, it's interesting, and that's why we joked. Obviously, you were saying in the text that you don't have much of imagination, but to your point, I think it does makes me think you have a pretty solid imagination with it. Like when you talk about evolving, right? And I think if you have a set goal and you're unwilling to deviate from that goal, see, to me that seems like someone who doesn't have that much of an imagination. That seems like someone who's incredibly rigid, and it's saying if I don't do this, there's nothing else for me. I think that's a problem because there's, as you mentioned, I'm of the same mindset. Like a lot of times the thing that you're trying to achieve doesn't always work out at all, or it doesn't work out the way you expected. Right. And so you have to be willing to shift. And the more you fight against that, the more difficult it is to make that deviation from your plan. But I think people with imaginations and people who have that creativity and who are willing to, not feel stuck in their situation, I think are open to that. And I almost think it excites them too, right? Where they say, okay, my original plan was going down this road. It's almost like you're driving down a freeway, right? You're going down the road and there's multiple exits. And some people are like, it doesn't matter what is going on, doesn't matter what kind of detours, traffic, construction, I'm going to keep pressing forward. I'm just going to keep going forward no matter how long it takes me, no matter what I have to do. If I break down, I'm just going to keep going forward. And some people are like, you know what? I was supposed to go this direction, but this might actually be really exciting if I take this route instead. Maybe I eventually come back to the main road that I was going to be on, but maybe there's something new and exciting down this road, and maybe I should go that way instead. And I think they're almost excited about the possibilities. And so, and I was gonna ask you about your business too, because I feel like I remember you saying that in previous episodes that it was a big step in trying to make that decision. It's funny too, just from my perspective of a view and your personality and all that. It is, and maybe I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like it's interesting that your first thought was like how much work it would be, because I feel like your work ethic has never been in question.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. It was,
sorry, you froze a little bit.
oh yeah, no, you're good. Yeah. I'm a very hard worker. Like I can't hold still anyway. Yeah.
Sure.
I think I don't know. I think I just doubted myself a little bit. Like, oh, I haven't been in school in forever, like type thing, right? Because I'm
That part would freak me out. It's like I barely made it through. Actually, I did fine. Everybody. I was a good student. I always say that. People are like, "How bad?" It was good. A's and B's across the board, except for a couple of math classes. Got a little
right.
dicey. But
Yeah.
yes, sorry. Go ahead.
No, just every weekend being booked and just taking classes and uh, yeah, over breaks, over holiday breaks. So I was
Sure.
just like, I'm gonna have to make some sacrifices. And at the time, I didn't have a dog, so it was just like I was gone all the time, like literally for like a year. My friends would be like, what are you doing? Like, they try to plan something, and I'm always like, massage school. Massage school would always be my answer. And they understood and they're like, oh, dang it. Okay, well, you go do your thing. So, they knew obviously that I was going to be busy. Um, but yeah. And even now, like this past weekend, I took a few more classes. Just I have some hours that I've paid for that haven't used yet. And so I'm still kind of here and there taking a few just to like keep up with stuff. But yeah, I don't know. And it was a whole new world for me, that
Sure.
type of, kinesiology, at least like hands-on kinesiology. So it
Sure.
was just, yeah, I think I was nervous because I was just, and it costs money to, to go to be in school. So I think the whole thing just at first was like, okay, I'm going to pay this much money to go to school like for like a year and still have a full-time job. And
Sure.
I'm like, okay. But then I'm also in the back of my head, like, well, if I can do that, then I can like, run a business, hopefully. So it was, I'm glad I did it because I do like having it as like, a side hustle, if you will, I guess.
Sure.
'Cause I've always had one anyway. So I'm like, if I could set my own hours and if I can do this and, help people feel relaxed and feel better, then great. And I'm glad I stuck with it because now have a good balance and I'm glad I'm still teaching. I'm glad I didn't quit my teaching job to try to
Yeah.
pursue the full time. Yeah, I like being able to just rely on this as extra for right now. And who knows? Who knows what's going to happen in the future? And maybe I do it full time. I don't know. But the point is that I didn't just stifle myself and just stop altogether once I realized, okay, no, I'm still teaching, so I'm not going to do this full time. Like it didn't. Like I just kept going. I'm like, let me see what happens. That's my motto now is why not? And let me see what happens. Let's just see what happens because
Yeah.
you just never know. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, and
yeah,
you mentioned that conversation with your aunt a little while ago. I'm guessing that your aunt's got a decent imagination on her, a decently creative person,
yes,
which would make sense, right? Like someone with that kind of mindset. Like it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because yeah, when I've said this last, I think, year a lot to people in my family, specifically my wife. Like there is this idea of like not be like you're never stuck, right? Like it may feel like you're stuck. It may feel like you're stuck in a situation or you're stuck in a specific circumstance, but a lot of times we're not necessarily stuck.
yeah,
But if you want to get unstuck or if you want to get out of that situation, it may, as you mentioned, or it may require some sacrifice. It may require making some difficult decisions to get out of it, right? Um, like you said, if the teaching thing for you was really that difficult, when it was at its worst, then you weren't, I mean, realistically, you're not stuck in that situation. Like you could quit whenever you wanted, but you're also accepting a massive amount of potential stress and, financially taking a massive hit, right? It's like, but at the end of the day, you can kind of do like to your aunt's point, you don't have to do that, but it's also part of that is accepting, okay, if I choose not to do that, I eliminate this problem or this stress from my life. I can do that, but you're also taking on a different kind of stress and problem in a different area of life. And for some people, it's like, yeah, I'm cool with that. Let's flip the problems. Let's flip the stress. I don't want to deal with this other thing. But like the point being is like, I feel like we're never stuck. And I think having that imagination, in you, even though it may not be the same as when you were a kid, having that imagination to think about the possibilities, I think helps people make that step, right? Like if they're trying to make a change or a switch in their career or in their life, I think being able to kind of dream and have that imagination is going to help you take that step because it gives you some possibilities. And like we said, just because you have the dream, just because you have an imagination, I mean, there's so many things that I imagine during the day. It's like these things aren't going to be realistic, but you're just constantly kind of thinking and dreaming about different things. And I think just having the ability to think about the possibilities for me is really important. Like I said, it goes back to that quote where your limits begin where your vision ends. I
yeah.
think too many times we put these limits on ourselves
Mm-hmm.
unnecessarily. And I think just because you envision something big doesn't mean that you're like, of course, I'm going to build a plane, like you said. Yeah, there's probably a couple of things that are not in your tool belt that would
Yeah.
help you maybe build a plane,
Not to
but
mention the brain wasn't fully developed, so there's that too.
I don't know. Hey, you're quite a few steps closer to building a plane than I am. If I ever say I'm going to build a plane, you guys should all be like, no, don't do that. It's too much math for me.
Yeah.
But but no. Anyways, I thought it was just it's an interesting topic. Like I said,
Yeah.
imagination. And I think there's a place for it too. And like I said, I keep going back to like watching my kids play. And I actually saw this video a while ago on Instagram where this guy was basically saying, hey, it was a video of his kids' playroom and it was just a complete mess, just a disaster. And he's like, this is what we see, right? You see the mess, you see the craziness, you see everything out of order. But then he pans down and he gets down to where like their eye level would be. And everything looks bigger. The toys look bigger. The room looks bigger. He's like, for us, this is chaos. This is a mess. But for them, like this is their world they're living in right now. This is where the creativity happens. This is where the imagination happens. So it was just an interesting perspective, especially because when you see the mess, you're like, this place is a disaster.
Yeah.
And then you realize, okay, it's a cool thing. It's still a mess, and that's not fun. But in the grand scheme of things, you see, it's like, okay, this is like their whole little world right now,
Mhm.
and like there's endless possibilities. And especially as a parent, I think you got to try to encourage that as long as possible, because like we've talked about this whole podcast, at some point, you know, even if they're living the absolute best life, at some point, the real world reality kicks in, and that imagination kind of starts to fade out a little bit. And so I think trying to hold on to that as long as possible, obviously not in a way where you're holding them back from developing as people, but I think encouraging that side of their lives is huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's always sad to me, and I'm sure you've seen this as a teacher. It's always sad when you see a young person. Obviously you're high school. You have high school age students, but when you see elementary school kids that
Mhm.
you can just tell that spark or that light isn't really in them. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Because of the rough hand they were dealt.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, like in for some situations you kind of know the home life, and it's like it's a bummer that at such a young age, like that was taken from them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's always a sad thing. And I feel like you could always tell. I feel like my mom was always really good about that. Like when she was, especially as I had gotten older. I'm 7 years older than my brother Jordan, 9 years older than my brother Justin. So there's a significant age gap between us. So I would help my mom sometimes when you would go to, she would help at the school, like elementary school, or if she was at like a sports thing. And I feel like she always had a great ability to kind of notice that stuff. She's like, you can just tell like that kid's has a rougher life, and you can just tell by like the look in their eyes, like it's just different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like that was just taken from them at a younger age, which is just such a bummer. You know what I mean? So it's always sad when you see stuff like that. So I think anytime you can encourage that imagination, like you don't know, they may not be getting that encouragement at home. So if you have an opportunity um, to, like, if you're in a place like teacher, coach, whatever, to kind of reignite that, I think that's super important. Not take that down like a dark road, but again, it's just one of those things. Man, it's because I'm a dad now. You start thinking about that stuff more, but yeah, it's interesting.
I was always encouraged. My sister and I were always encouraged when we were younger to try things.
Sure.
So we tried different sports. I dabbled in piano for a while. Like I tried different instruments like the clarinet and stuff. My sister tried guitar for a little bit. My sister did theater for a little bit. We just we were encouraged to just try anything. Anytime we had an idea, can I try this? Our parents were always like, sure. And I think even as I think me and my sister would always ask, is that gonna cost a lot? Like we were just always, they taught us to be mindful too of like, how much things were, and just like, but they were always like, no, don't worry about it. Like
Sure.
just like that's fine. And so like, we were always encouraged to do that, which was really good just because I think that allowed our imagination to just kind of go until my sister would squash my dreams. But I really couldn't build an airplane when I was 6. I get it. yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
but
but
at
I
least she
mean,
was sorry. At least she was like straight. We haven't mentioned this, but at least she was straightforward about it,
straightforward.
and it was never like, "Hey, I want to play the clarinet." Oh, you really want to play the clarinet, huh? Okay, that's interesting. Like that passive aggressive, that's way worse than just being
Yeah,
straightforward. It's like you should not play the clarinet.
she was very encouraging of trying of realistic things like me playing the piano when I was that age. Me building a plane, not so much. But you know what? Sometimes we need to be like, hey, listen, you're 6, you can't build an airplane right now.
Sure, there you go.
But yeah, no, but no, yeah, she was. I mean, other than those things, those two things, she's always been supportive. My family has always been supportive. But I do run into high school kids that I'll ask them like, "What do you want to do after high school?" And not that I knew what I wanted to do after high school either, but I at least had some ideas. And a lot of them are like, "I don't know. I have no idea." And I'll ask them, "Well, what do you like to do?" And they just kind of look at me and shrug their shoulders. And that's a
Hmm.
whole nother episode we could, if you want to get into just, how phones have just started to ruin our generation. We could talk about that later. But I feel like
Yeah.
more I've post COVID kids, they're not quite sure what they want to do other than be on YouTube or play video games for, and like they
Sure.
don't know what, I don't know. So it's just that part is rough too. So not
Yeah.
all of them, some of them, most of them are not
Yeah.
sure what to do.
No. No, I agree. I'm not around high school kids like you are, but yeah, I think it's a pretty common thing these days where it is a bummer that there's not, even an idea. Or, again, I mean, like the social media thing and the phones and technology. I don't want to sound like an old man, but I do think that does play a part in, like, it's a weird thing. Again, we're going to say it again, but there's a balance, right? Like, I think because of the technology and the incredible advances that technology's had, in some ways, it opens up like a whole nother world of your imagination, like the possibilities and the reality and the realistic nature of your dreams, like kind of increases, right? Because there's so many different, I mean, even you and I have talked about this. Like, we can very easily now connect with someone on the East Coast. We've done it, or someone, down south, like pretty easily. And so even our ability to connect with some people here has been so much easier. So like I feel like you and I have talked about it before. Once we did this for the first time on remotely, like our imagination is like, oh, well, now I can reach out to this person or this person. Like it expands your imagination in some ways, but at the same time, some of the things that are just like, attention suckers, uh, it does kind of stifle the imagination, because at that point, like, you kind of have everything at your fingertips. You don't really need it to work, right? It's like, well, I can just Google this or search this video or spend hours on TikTok. Um, and it just kind of shuts that part of your brain off because you have something that's captured your attention rather than, sitting there dreaming about something different. Right.
Right.
And I think I feel like I read this, and I don't quote me on this, but I feel like as I was kind of just doing some really quick research about this, it was interesting because I think someone mentioned boredom as being instrumental in imagination and developing imagination. Because when you're bored and if you have nothing to do, the only thing you really can lean on is your imagination, right? Like, you can think about, daydream, all these different things. You've probably seen it with your students in class. You're talking and they're daydreaming about something completely different. And I'm sure that all teachers around the world can relate to that. But when you have your phone, that boredom, they may be bored, but they also have something that's keeping their attention, right? It's a game, it's a video, whatever it may be. And so it's like, yeah, you're kind of removing that sense of boredom that might kind of push someone into a more imaginative place, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah. My in high school when I was a freshman, I remember I had a biology class, and my biology teacher, and mind you, this was before phones, so I wasn't even on my phone. Like, we weren't allowed to have phones in school.
Sure.
But my biology teacher, and I think it's because I found biology very boring, like you said, the board thing. She would always just call me out, Deborah, are you daydreaming again? And I would
Oh,
just, huh? And I would look at her, and she's like, what did I just say? And I'm like, I don't know.
ooh, what's the worst? I have been there.
I was always a good student, but every once in a while, like, I swear I would like drift off in my head, and I would just be like not in class sometimes,
So
a few times. So,
I've
so
been there before. Now, have you ever had the situation where it could be any class, but let's say like English, you're
mhm.
supposed to all be reading together, and then it's the same thing. You're kind of dazed, not paying attention, daydreaming. All of a sudden, you hear your name called. It's like, hey, do you want to pick up where we left off? Like, oh yeah, what page are we on? And then you realize, oh, I'm 3 pages behind. I have not been turning the pages for, like, a while. This is a problem. So
Right.
that was always an embarrassing one too.
Yeah. So funny. But yeah, I think I like what you said, like when we're bored or when we're not distracted by things like,
Yeah.
busyness or our phones or TV or something. Heck, even when I'm driving home or from work or to work and I have a podcast on, I'll sometimes tune that podcast out
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of like, and I'll start thinking of things. And then pretty soon I'm like, wait, what are they? Because it'll be a true crime podcast, obviously. So I'd be like, wait, this person died. Wait, how'd they die? I missed it. And I'd have to rewind because
So
I
that's
missed the
different though, because then you're imagining that you're daydreaming of, like, okay, what if this person's chasing me with a knife? And it's like, then you insert yourself into the story. Like, oh, that's probably
yeah,
not great.
yeah, yeah. But I think sometimes we need to shut our brains off and just daydream a little bit.
I think so.
I
Like I
think
said,
so.
it almost paints your, like I look at it as almost painting your, like the boredom's painting your imagination and creativity into a corner. It's like I'm
Yeah.
so bored, I have nothing else to distract me. The
Mhm.
only thing I can do to entertain myself at this point is use my imagination and like I
Yeah.
said, daydream and all that. But I think if you have other outs, then you won't do that. And I don't think you tap into that side of your brain. None of this stuff is scientifically proven by me or research. Like I said, I saw like one thing. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Uh, so if you're interested in that, do your own research because mine was
Mhm.
probably not great. But like it seems to make sense though, right? Like it seems to make
Yeah.
sense that those two things would go hand in hand. And so yeah, you're right. It's probably a longer conversation on a different day, but it was it's interesting for sure.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, I thought this would be a fun conversation to toss out there for people. And like I said, you know, it's just a big part. I think it's a big part of our lives, and it's a bummer that it so easily, kind of disappears. But when you Google it, there's a ton of people that are like, "How do you reignite your creativity or your imagination? How do you tap back into that? How do you rebuild it, or how do you build it again?" Like, so I feel like people are this is kind of on people's minds. Like, how do you get back to that a little bit? You know what I mean? And then it's again all all a balance. A balance between the two things because
Yeah.
just straight imagination, no reality, probably not great. All reality, no imagination, probably not a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
there's a world in which you both those things work together, and like I said, they work together, and I think you get the best possible version of what your life could look like
Mhm.
if those two things work hand in hand. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I
Yeah.
would just I would just encourage everybody, find something that kind of taps into that creativity, that imagination, get back to that place. Like I said, I'm a big proponent of this. Like kind of have like that kid like spirit. Like I think you need to have that in your life. Do something silly or dumb. You know what I mean? I do it all the time. Even before kids, I was doing that. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of slip and slide. Am I going to pay the price one day? Probably. Hasn't happened yet. That being said, I tweaked my lower back the other day
Oh
lifting
no.
weights. This is I don't know if this makes any sense to you, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This is a very true statement. Since college, maybe my freshman sophomore year of college, it
Mhm.
seems like once a year when I'm lifting weights, I'll tweak my lower back. It's not like it's just literally once a year, and then I'm good for the rest of the year, and then about a year later, I do it again. Different exercises. It's very strange. And so it got me the other day doing some goblet squats. And was it a lot of weight? Mm-mm. No, it was not. And
It never is.
just squat down, like, I feel it in my back. And then I'm just like, oh, this is going to be a rough one. But I used the Theragun.
Mm.
That was fantastic.
Nice. There you go. It's called getting older. It just happens. And I swear we get hurt by lifting nothing sometimes too, just
But
by stepping the wrong way.
sure. But that the lower back thing, it's like I said, it's like once a year.
So crazy.
It's weird, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know. It's just your back saying, I'm done for
I've
now.
been like, I've tweaked other areas and that, like you said, that's definitely a product of getting older. But the lower back, I don't know. Different
It's weird.
exercises just once a year. And it's like, I don't know. It's like the flu shot. Get the flu shot, and I'm like, I'm good for the rest of the year. Until next year, I gotta get that shot again.
Yeah.
So, but
It's
I'm good
just,
now.
oh,
Like I said,
good.
that Theragun really does wonders.
Yeah. Theragun make sure you Theragun your glutes, and then that'll help your lower back too.
Okay,
Maybe.
I'll keep
I
that
don't
in
know.
mind.
Try it.
All right.
But do what you're doing then if that's working.
Yeah, I haven't used it. I'm good now.
Okay.
I'm not trying to put Deb out of business. So if you guys need any work done, call Deb. Don't buy a Theragun, even though I do
No,
recommend the
I will.
Theragun. It's nice. I'm not
I
trying to
will.
take money out of Deb's pockets.
No, I will tell my clients. I was like, I be like, I'm working on them. Like, do you have a Theragun or a massage gun? And they'll be like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, use it on yourself. Like, when I leave here, you use it to keep it going. Like, I can't come back every day and do this. So,
There you
unless you want
go.
me to. So, I encourage them to use it if they want to. A Theragun and me is not the same thing. They're not going to get the same feeling or results, but they could try a Theragun.
If someone booked a session with you and they asked you to use the Theragun on them, would you do that?
Mm, yeah, if they wanted me to. I mean, it's their session. I
Was that
don't.
your dog's tail?
She just stood up and shook. She's
I
ready.
was
I
gonna
got to take
say
her walk still. She's been this whole time I've had a treat bag and I've been feeding her treats because she's been staring at me,
Yeah.
making whining noises. So anyway,
Okay.
she's playing with her toys, entertaining herself right now, which is great. But that's why if you ever adopt, get an adult dog who already knows what they're doing.
There
So
you
she's
go.
down playing with her toy right now.
I was
She's
it
ready for
sounded like either a tailor or someone is there giving you a round of applause, which
no.
thank you very much. We try our best.
Yes, exactly. But I will use a massage gun if they want to. I haven't, I don't think. But
That'd be
I
weird
also
though, right? That's like taking your own meat to a restaurant and saying, "Can you grill this for me?" It's like we're a steakhouse.
right.
Like let
Yeah.
us do the work.
Yeah. So
But
I
so
haven't.
you would do it.
Yeah, if they want me to, not the whole time. I'd be like, I'll work a certain area for a little bit, and then I'm gonna go back to doing my thing. Okay, sorry, now she's bouncing around. So
Oh, she's fine.
okay. But yeah, I think not the whole session. I wouldn't.
It'd be weird.
I mean,
You just run out of batteries. Like, well, I guess I got to take over now. You got 5 minutes left.
right?
All
Yeah.
right.
So I mean, use it if you want.
There you go.
But yeah,
All
there
right.
you go.
Well, before we get out of here, how's the business going? Everything good? Imagine people
Good.
are booking more sessions now that, because I imagine some of your clients are teacher or people in the education world. So
Oh yeah.
probably need a
Yeah.
lot more
Oh,
booking
school's
double
back.
sessions right now.
Yep, school's back.
And parents too, huh? Probably got some parents in there. Need some massages.
No, that's weird. I don't want my kids' parents.
No.
I don't
No.
want-
No, I just mean parents in general, not your parents. Not you.
Oh yeah. Well, someone asked me that one time, so that's why I thought of that just now.
Did I ask you that?
You? Sorry. Nala, we're almost done. I promise. Come here. Come here. Sorry, I'm almost done.
I can translate what the dog said. Shut up, Josh.
Someone asked me, do you massage your students' parents? That'd be a good no. I'm like, absolutely not. Let's not mix these two jobs together.
Yeah.
So,
That seems like that would be it seems like some like adult content they've consumed. It's like I've seen this video before.
so
The
weird.
teacher massages the parents.
So weird. But yeah, my friends and people who are parents, yes. They're
Yeah. That's what I was asking. More people that are clients of yours that are parents of children that are getting back into the school year and maybe a little stressed out. No, I'm glad you don't massage. bring your massage table to back to school night. It'd be wild. It's like, oh, Deb's trying to get fired.
Right.
That's when you fully committed to giving up the teacher thing and just doing massage. It's like, hey, I'm on my way out. This is my one last shot to market to this group of people. Yeah.
Just my business card out there. Yeah.
Just like, wow, there's a massive line out of the gym for back to school night. What is going on? Yeah. Oh, she's giving free 5-minute massages to market her business.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you don't do that. That would be crazy. That'd be a real roll of the dice.
Right.
So, all right.
Not an information I want. So
No. Yeah, probably not. All right, we're gonna end it there before it gets out of hand. So, Deb, where can they follow us?
You guys can follow us on Twitter at connectablepod, and then all other social media like Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Connectable Podcast.
Yes, please follow us on all those places because Deb does not, and we could use the extra support. And if you could head over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is to give us a 5-star rating and review and subscribe, obviously, we would appreciate it. You can also subscribe on YouTube. We are one away from 100 subscribers, which I know some of you are thinking, 100 is not that big of a deal. You know what? For us, it's a huge deal. So get us there. We're almost there. 100 subscribers. I don't care. You can create a fake account and become a subscriber. That would be awesome. So we just had an episode with our friend Kimberly Daya, and so that dropped today. And so at this point, you've hopefully already listened to it. If you haven't, go back and listen to it. And then next week, I have no idea who's going to be on the podcast. I don't know what we're going to talk about. We're really shooting from the hip. So, but we're going to use our imagination and try to figure it out. So thank you guys so much for
we do our best work that way.
Thank you. I feel like Deb gave me like the roll of the eyes, like that was a dumb joke. You know what? I don't care.
That's great. I agree.
That's not what your face. No, you're a dream crusher like your sister. And I feel like that's the look you gave me. Anyways, we'll see you guys next week. See ya.
Bye. Whoa.
Oh, we stopped. Actually, I haven't stopped recording. Should we keep this in?
Okay.
This could be big for our numbers. Deb's going to die on air.
Woo.
No, she recovered. See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks for watching the show. If you enjoyed that episode, make sure you like it, share it, and hit the subscribe button to get a new episode every week. We'll see you next time on the Connectable Podcast.